Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about the power of art. We're honored to be joined by Dr. Zoe Kahr, Executive Director of the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. So excited to be here.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of exciting news to talk about, but let's start with a little bit of your personal backstory because you've got a cool backstory, especially coming to Memphis and leading the Brooks Museum. So give us a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. So I am a native Californian and spent most of my childhood in California before moving to the East Coast, where I lived and went to school for about 15 years. And I started my career at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And then from there, I went on to the LA County Museum of Art, where I spent the last 12 years. And while in Los Angeles, I was responsible for our entire curatorial program, our traveling exhibitions, as well as our major capital project. So LACMA is currently building a 300,000 square foot new facility designed by Peter Zumthor that will open in 2026. And then in addition, I really focused on our DEAI efforts through our programming and through our staff development.
What attracted you to Memphis and the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art?
I had read about the project and it's an amazing project. It's amazing to think about moving a museum from a historic site to a downtown that is in the process of being revitalized and reinvigorated. And for me, museums are always about civic service, really, and about how do we take a city asset and use it for the broadest possible service to our city and to our community. So being a part of this transformation as the museum went from being in Overton Park to this really spectacular new building on the banks of the Mississippi River that has such potential to contribute to our city, to our region, to our economy, was really enticing.
Let's go ahead and dive in deeper on that because you're really kind of living two lives. You have one planning for the future, but then you are still open and all the exhibits are currently going on. So when you talk about kind of where you are in this moment, especially related to Overton Park and then obviously the move downtown, go ahead and talk about where you are in this moment.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a really challenging and exciting moment for us. The museum, like all museums, had shut down during COVID, and COVID for all museums because they were inside spaces. And we felt this especially keenly in California, where the museum was closed for a year. It was a little less draconian here. But nonetheless, it just, you lose audience. People kind of forget that you're there. And I think for the Brooks in particular, the timing was challenging because there was already discussions going on about the museum closing ahead of the move. So the museum came out of COVID with sort of a confusing state of existence for Memphians, where it's been fun coming into town and people say, but wait, are you open? Yes, we are definitely open. And we are really growing and developing new dynamic programs that I would say we are testing out a lot of things that we want to be doing downtown here in Overton Park. So especially for visitors who like to be a part of the testing and evaluation of new ideas, Overton Park is going to be a really dynamic and engaging place to be. So we're really developing our programming around Black artists in particular. So we want to be a regional center for the study of Black artists, and we have a really engaging series of programs around that. We also are developing a new performing arts series. As we think about moving downtown, it feels like there's a huge opportunity to provide performing arts in a non-Beale Street setting with art, with beautiful views of the river. So we're testing out a lot of that here in Overton Park. We have new food service going on. We're testing out a new restaurant partner named Loaf. They're phenomenal. So if you haven't yet come and tried their lunch service, it's fantastic. We're testing out special dinners, but really all of the ideas that are going into the new building are currently being conceived and tested here in Overton Park. So it's a really dynamic, exciting moment to come and visit us.
Yeah, and I think that, one, yes, you're open. Two is it's kind of an, opportunity to see everything and be a part of exciting, new opportunities that could be building for the future. So in a cool way, now is a really special time to be a part of everything you're doing for that reason, just like you're talking about. Give us an idea when you talk about testing it out, what are some of the things that you're looking at to see, hey, is this something that's going to work? Is this going to be a success? Is this interactive enough? What are the things that you're looking at to kind of benchmark?
So, we talked about the Performing Arts series. So that launched on Wednesday, and that's something that we really want to both refine and grow. So where is the demand for music? And there's so much great music in Memphis. So what is our unique niche? What are we doing that's different from other players around town? And how can we develop a brand that's really uniquely our own? And then I would say the same thing around with the closure of the Memphis College of Art in 2020. It feels like there's a big hole in the community in terms of art classes, art camps, all of we can't replace the academic side of MCA, but we can replace or seek to help replace the big hole that they left in terms of community programs. So we've been thinking a lot about how do we do that in the most in the way that serves our community best. So I think we'll be testing out probably some figure drawing classes. We did run an art camp last summer, but we're rethinking that model. So that's another area of experimentation. When we get into the new building, we're really excited. We have these beautiful new studios for art making, as well as this gorgeous interactive art gallery. So testing out ideas for how those will run, what will the schedule be like, what are the classes that people are excited about is something that's going on site. And then in parallel, we're also really testing out the curatorial ideas, right? So it's often, unless you're me and you happen to have participated in 2 museum reinstallations, it's generally unusual to have the chance to reinstall a museum twice in one's career. So for our curators, this is a hugely exciting moment because typically museums install their collections once and then just kind of leave them there with some tweaks. So this is a really thrilling moment for the curatorial team where we're thinking about, okay, with the collection that we have, what are the really specific and exciting stories that we can tell? How do we string them together? How do we think about new narratives or new knowledge that our collection can help contribute to art history?
Dive in a little deeper on that side in terms of this new opportunity. So in other words, what are some of the things that you're really looking to accomplish with your vision on this, and storylines, impact? What are some of those things that you're looking to accomplish?
So the building really helps us in this regard. Our current building has really challenging circulation in the galleries. Every gallery section is a cul-de-sac. So you go in and you come back out. So you can't really string together a series of ideas. Our new building has all of the galleries on one level, and they go around in a circle around a beautiful courtyard. So there's no front entrance and no back entrance. So the new building really removes a lot of the traditional hierarchies that exist in museums around whose art is most important. Traditionally that would be Western painting, very specifically. And in our museum, you see that, right? Like that is what's closest to the 1916 entrance, which is the original entrance to the museum. And then you find Art of the African Diaspora is up, in our case, on the one floor up. In many museums, you would find Islamic art or pre-Columbian art down in the basement. So the new building affords an opportunity to really, very directly level the playing field and put everything all on one level, right? Like both physically and metaphorically. And that's really exciting from an art historical point of view, because I would say the trend in art history right now is to really think about any one object from many points of view. So if you're thinking about a Dutch still life, you might be thinking about, well, what's depicted in that still life? Where did those come from? Where did those objects come from? What do they tell us about trade, luxury goods? Where were they bought? What happened to the people who sold them? You can see globalism has become such a hot topic in general, and I think that's a really interesting new topic within art history, is just thinking about the consequences of colonialism, of trade, all those things that we sort of originally, I think, took for granted in art history, that you would look at a Dutch still life painting and say, wow, that's a really beautiful glass, or like, look at that shell, they did a great job painting it. So that's a really exciting opportunity for us to think about, where do we have objects in the collection that we can connect that are unexpected, or that could bring new perspectives onto a single work of art.
When you look at the new building and that opportunity, I love how you're talking about, in a symbolic but a very real way, it levels the playing field. So in and of itself, the new structure and building tells its story in a different way. It's a part of the story, right? So what's maybe one or two other things when you talk about the new location that really excites you from a story standpoint, and like you're talking about leveling the playing field physically too?
Yeah, we're just starting to think about the Mississippi River as a topic, and that's something that really intrigues me. And there's so many different ways you can go with that topic, whether it's thinking about trade along the Mississippi River, it's thinking about who lived originally along the Mississippi River and how do we represent the people who lived here originally and think about that culture that is no longer here. Or it could be thinking about what is the environmental impact of all of these things on the Mississippi River, and are there flora and fauna that used to exist that don't, that we should think about surfacing in our curatorial narratives.
So obviously right now is the perfect opportunity because the museum is open. And so obviously that's an easy way for the public to help support your efforts. Obviously with the new building, there's capital campaign opportunity financially to support there as well. Talk about the many different ways the community can help.
I think the biggest thing is showing up, right? Like we are your museum, so come and visit us. And then that is the most important way to show your support is come and participate. We do a ton of community days. We do typically four community days a year. Our Day of the Dead celebration in October typically attracts around 4,000 people. Chalk Fest is coming up on March 25th. We just started our first Lunar New Year celebration. And then we'll have a really phenomenal community day in collaboration with our colleagues at the Shell in June. And those, if you've never been to the museum before and you're not sure whether it's something for you, those are really wonderful ways to try us out because they're free. There's performances, there's art making, there's food. So they're a really great way to get to know us in a very low risk environment. And then, if you like us, membership is the most important way to show your support, right? Like if you come and you realize this is a place I want to be often, please join us. Please, our members are the core of what we do, and we really need our members to help us keep doing what we do.
We've done a number of events through City Current where we bring different business and community leaders in, and we have a dose and a tour guide on your end, and simply walking through and asking the question of what do you see, looking at the art and why do you see that? It's a great conversation starter. It's a great way to bring people together, to share stories, to understand each other better. And I think for those, especially as families, to walk in, my point is you don't have to know anything about art to appreciate it and use it as a conversation starter and a great opportunity to build, especially with your children. And so talk about that aspect of the power of art to bring community together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was an article about that in the New York Times today, right? Because artists are magical because they make beautiful things, and that beauty often disarms us and makes us more vulnerable or more open to new ideas. So I really believe in the power of art and artists to help us approach difficult topics, or just come together. And I think what you said about not needing to know anything is 100% correct. I think there's a myth about museums that you need to know something in order to come in the door. And yet, like, my favorite way to give a tour of the museum is just to talk about pieces that resonate with me, that I find attractive. It's very rarely about like, oh, here's the story of the artist and here's the art historical context. It's like, isn't that funny? That guy has a chicken on his head. So I think that we the staff, and I think we feel like the museum is a place where everyone should feel welcome. And in terms of family activities, I think that's another interesting challenge with our building is all of our studio spaces and our family gallery are not on the main floor. So I often talk to families and they tell me like, oh, the Brooks is not a place for us. Like, you don't have children's activities. And we do. Every single exhibition has a family gallery where there's an art making activity. There's always art making going on in the open studio space on the lower level. And then there's an interactive children's gallery on the top level. So we very, very much are a space for families. And it's a magical place to be able to have conversations with your kids about all kinds of topics, whether it's, gender, skin color, whatever, like anything. Art is an incredible way to talk about things that can feel abstract, but have a specificity. And it's a wonderful door to unlock an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that all of them have that opportunity for the youth. I think that's something really important that the public definitely needs to know. Give me one more thing in that regard. What's something else that you wish the public knew? So give me one more thing that you wish everyone knew about the Memphis Brooks Museum of Art.
It's fair that they don't know it yet because it is still happening, but we are building our gift store into not any old museum gift store. It is really going to be about elevating Memphis's makers. Like this is I feel like Memphis has an incredible reputation as a music town, and yet the talent of the visual artists in this town is phenomenal. And I want our gift shop to be reflective of that and to be about supporting and elevating our local makers. So we're just launching a couple of programs around that. So stay tuned. I think in April we'll be doing a big relaunch, but I think of us when you're looking for a really tasteful and interesting Memphis gift that's not a branded t-shirt, right? Like that, when you want something really special for someone, we're the place to go.
Very cool. Well, the last question is the easy one. Where do we go to learn more? You talked about the memberships and so much more. So website, social media, where do we go?
All those things. We have a really active social media presence. We have a website. You can sign up for our newsletter and join us as a member. That's when you get the most information as quickly as possible. So,
well, the easy place to go and learn more is brooksmuseum.org. That's brooksmuseum.org. Dr. Zoe Kahr, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.